Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 330 based on novel. So let's start. In my pocket. Luo Feng waved his hand and put the space ring, the world ring, and the true treasure armor into his own world ring. A furious roar blasted near Luo Feng's ears. Blade River Emperor, you're just greedy. Luo Feng turned around and saw Pon Knight dashing toward him. He grinned and transmitted his voice. Pon Knight, you're a candidate deified general. Are you really that stupid? Do you really believe Bark Mirror Emperor would have left my true treasures alone if I were the one who got killed? What a joke. If you want them back, take them with your own hand. Pon Knight was infuriated. The only rule in the universe was to fight. If Bark Mirror Emperor killed Luo Feng, he would have taken Luo Feng's true treasures as well. As for Pon Knight, he thought Blade River Emperor should have given the true treasure back to him as he had already asked politely and promised not to kill him. You moron. You're too arrogant. Pon Knight transmitted his roaring sound, and there was fire burning in his eyes. He was more than 1,000 feet tall, which made him look taller and bigger than Bark Mirror Emperor. Though he couldn't catch up with Luo Feng instantly, he opened his mouth. An intangible attack dashed Luo Feng in light speed. Soul attack. It was faster even than the spiritual force weapon, and it was flexible. No. Luo Feng was terrified but couldn't dodge it. He could only withstand the attack with all his power. Pon Knight was a candidate deified general, which meant he had already reached the perfect level at one of the 72 deified general inheritances. His soul amplification already reached 100 times, which was the limit, and he also learned a set of special attacks that only belonged to deified generals. The power of that set of attacks was more powerful than the talent techniques of many special life forms. It was the ultimate technique of deified general inheritance, and it was a universe master level technique. Pon Knight, as a being at the same level as 11 Luo Duo, had a life gene level of more than 60 times. Besides, he was a universe knight who had a godly body 100 times that of an undying fighter, which meant his godly body was 600 million times stronger than that of a sector lord, which made it more powerful than Luo Feng's original earthling body. Stronger godly body, perfect soul amplification, universe overlord level willpower, and universe master level techniques. He was superior to Luo Feng in all aspects. It was soundless. When Luo Feng's godly body was attacked, he could feel that his godly power was being stripped away. This technique attacked the life imprint in the godly power directly, and its goal was to completely destroy the life imprint, which was equivalent to destroying Luo Feng's soul. Luo Feng was roaring in his heart, with his willpower and burning godly body controlling Tower Pearl. Star Pearl gleamed and locked Luo Feng's godly body, which protected him from all the fierce attacks from Pon Knight. Although he was inferior to Pon Knight in all aspects, without Tower Pearl, his soul would have been crushed completely under one attack. However, this was when the power of a true treasure was manifested. Luo Feng could resist Bark Mirror Emperor's talent technique with Tower Pearl when he was only a sector lord, and now that his godly power was half that of Pon Knight and he had the Tower Pearl to guard his soul. Ha ha, laughed Luo Feng. Pon Knight, your technique is not that impressive. Luo Feng transmitted his voice and started to flee like a beam of light. He knew that a universe overlord had multiple techniques, and he would have to utilize all he'd gotten if he wanted to fight a universe overlord. Besides, even if he utilized everything he had, a win wasn't guaranteed. He had just become undying, and he still hadn't gotten a top-tier true treasure like Force Arm. Shawu Wing was utilized, and Luo Feng started to flee swiftly among the space fragments. What? Pon Knight said. He resisted it? Pon Knight was shocked. Bark Mirror Emperor speculated that Luo Feng had a soul true treasure after hunting Luo Feng before, but he didn't report it back to the seniors of Northern Territory Alliance because soul attack was a merciless technique and soul true treasures were precious without comparison. True treasures like pieces of armor and the Shawu wings could only weaken soul attacks. As for soul true treasures, they could guard the soul. If Flying Palace true treasures could defend one against material attacks, soul true treasures could defend the soul. Soul true treasures were more attractive to great beings, which was why Bark Mirror Emperor didn't make it public, as he was afraid that Luo Feng would be killed by some supreme being in Northern Territory Alliance. Thus, he couldn't get the soul true treasure. Instead, he had been waiting for the perfect opportunity, yet he resorted to self-destruction. Seeing Luo Feng escape like a flash of light, Pei Feng started to chase him and performed another technique. Law Domain. Pon Knight knew he didn't have much time, as the supreme beings of the human race might arrive soon. After that, he wouldn't have the chance. The hundreds of millions of miles of space around them turned silent, trapped in the Law Domain. Luophone was trapped as well. Law Domain, of Time Law. He was stunned. Undying fighters could perform Law Domain, and so could Universe Knights. Besides, space and time law were more superior than gold, wood, water, fire, ground, wind, thunder, and light. Control over Law Domain could make the power of Law Domain surge. Even as powerful as Luophone's world projection had been as a sector lord, the Law Domain of official-level Undying fighters could rival his world projection. Pon Knight gazed at Luophone coldly. Wind annihilation, he cried. The flow of time was bizarre within the time domain. Luophone tried to flee, but miniature tornadoes showed up around him, each about the size of an eyeball. They surrounded Luophone and dashed at him one after another. "Get the hell away!" Luophone shouted. He tried to use his Shawu wings to block the tornadoes, but they dodged the wing strikes, easily making contact with Luophone's godly body. He didn't dare to close his Shawu wings completely. If he did so, he would be significantly slower, and he would be caught by Pon Knight. Although he was already affected by Space Law Domain, it was not omnipotent. He could still change direction and keep his distance from Pon Knight. The miniature tornadoes bit into Luophone's body. 60% of Luophone's godly body was gone immediately, which terrified Luophone. "He's trying to annihilate my godly body?" Luophone thought in horror. Fortunately, he had stored his world rings on his body where he hid Remote Ocean Body, Mosha Body, and Golden Horned Beast Body. The world ring with Remote Ocean Body let out godly power, restoring Luophone's godly body. Luophone's godly body kept being weakened, but each time, it recovered. "So this is the power of a universe overlord," said Luophone. "He isn't even close to me yet, but he can still damage me like that." Luophone kept using his Shawu wing to keep his distance from Pon Knight. "He's still alive," said Pon Knight. Pon Knight was dazed. Although this move wasn't effective against universe overlords at his level, it was lethal against ordinary universe knights. It was a technique made for Time Law Domain. His godly body is constantly being consumed, but somehow, it's still at 100%. But of course, he has the clone technique. He must have stored a body. Pon Knight had figured it out. Bark Mirror Emperor had used the virtual network to broadcast the fight against Luophone when it first started, but when he realized he couldn't even defend himself against Luophone, he had turned off the broadcast as he felt ashamed. Which was why the heirs in the open-air square of the World of Glory and other superpowers in the universe only knew that Luophone had crushed Bark Mirror Emperor. Pon Knight had not known that Luophone had brought his bodies to the fight. Pon Knight's eyes gleamed with madness. "I can only kill him after destroying his bodies." Pon quickly hatched a plan. He had said he wouldn't kill Blade River Emperor before, as he knew Blade River Emperor would be revived even if he killed him. However, Blade River Emperor was obviously carrying his bodies with him. He didn't know exactly how many bodies Blade River Emperor had, but the number couldn't be large. Together with the original body, some fighters had 2 godly bodies while others had 3. Pon Knight's eyes glinted fiercely. "Kill," he snorted. 2 black whirlwinds came out of his nose and flew toward Luophone like 2 miniature black dragons. The 2 black whirlwinds didn't appear powerful, but all the space fragments they touched vanished immediately. "Danger! Danger! Danger!" Luophone felt the wind's life-threatening essence and quickly realized he was in trouble. "My human godly body will be annihilated immediately if I am touched by these 2 black whirlwinds," thought Luophone. Although he was significantly inferior when it came to battle techniques, he could still sense that the 2 black whirlwinds were the most horrendous attacks he had ever encountered. Pon Knight had already made 3 moves. The first move was one of the deified general ultimate techniques, and it was terrifically powerful. Luophone had withstood that attack with his Tower Pearl. The second move was a material attack, which was used when being cornered by weaker universe knights. However, it could still destroy half of Luophone's godly body. As for the third move, it was a material attack used when fighting universe overlords. Both of the 2 black whirlwinds were hundreds of times more powerful than the miniature tornadoes. "No," thought Luophone. "I'm trapped in Time Law Domain now, so even if I use Ancient Boat Galaxy, I can't get away. Perhaps he'll even take my Ancient Boat Galaxy." As for my Mosha body, he is only able to perform domain when he's alone, so I would need to put my original Earthling body back in the world ring. However, Pon Knight would never give me a chance like that. Luo Feng flew swiftly with his Shawu wing. He had made up his mind. Neither Ancient Boat Galaxy nor Mosha body was suitable. That left him with only one option. Pon Knight pursued Luo Feng, his eyes glinting greedily. He's got to have a soul true treasure to be able to resist my deified general technique, he thought. He's got to. No wonder Bark Mirror Emperor wasn't able to kill the then Sector Lord Blade River Emperor. And Bark Mirror Emperor had the benefit of an incredibly powerful talent technique. Pon Knight was feeling more confident now. The deified general technique could severely damage even a universe overlord. Luo Feng would need a soul true treasure to resist it. A soul true treasure. The human race must indeed highly value Blade River Emperor. Even I, as a universe overlord, don't have that kind of true treasure. Pon Knight watched the black whirlwinds closing in and shouted eagerly, "Die! Die? I'll take your true treasures after you're dead." Pon Knight was a universe overlord, yet he only had two true treasures, both of which were mediocre and common. One was a piece of protective armor, and the other was a blade. He immediately figured out that this peerless talent of the human race had a true treasure wing and a soul true treasure. Die? Die? Pon Knight cried, watching expectantly. It's all over, he thought. Even a universe knight with true treasure armor is likely to be killed by this move. All was silent. Two black whirlwinds intertwined with each other as they got closer and closer to Luo Feng. Pon Knight, you've left me no choice. Luo Feng transmitted his roaring voice. A towering shadow suddenly appeared behind Luo Feng. It was more than 5,500 miles tall. A godly body standing at a height of 5,500 miles was a terrific sight, and Pon Knight was shocked to his very core. What? What kind of special life form is this? Pon Knight stammered. A godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles existed almost exclusively among flesh and blood type living beings. Earth only had a diameter of 6,000 miles. This living being was nearly as large as the planet Earth. The entire godly body started to burn, and the godly tower surged, destabilizing the Time Law domain. Although remote ocean body only had a life gene level of 1,000 times and the original Earthling body had a level of 3,000 times, remote ocean body emitted millions of times greater pressure to the Time Law domain than the original Earthling body. The reason, remote ocean body was simply gigantic. The godly power he burned every second was more than 100 million times that the original Earthling body did. The two black whirlwinds pursued Luo Feng at light speed, but remote ocean body charged directly at the black whirlwinds. Luo Feng had chosen the most appropriate time to let out remote ocean body, as he did so when the black whirlwinds were only 6,000 miles away from him. Remote ocean body enveloped the black whirlwinds. Like snow melting under the sun's rays, remote ocean body was being consumed. Larger, larger, larger. Remote ocean body broke into laughter, and the sound resounded through the boundless space. His godly body was suddenly enlarged, and he became 60,000 miles tall. The density of his body, therefore, became much lower. Yet the black whirlwinds were trapped inside remote ocean body and needed to annihilate the godly power around them to move forward. The black whirlwinds kept consuming the godly power around them, but remote ocean body had unlimited godly power. Remote ocean body had the same godly power as universe knights, said Luo Feng. I had a godly body at the height of more than 5,500 miles for you to destroy. Let's see how much your black whirlwinds can destroy. Luo Feng relied solely on the gigantic godly body. It was unlikely for an enormous godly body like that to fall. One wouldn't be able to destroy the body, even if the body didn't fight back at all. After a few seconds, the two black whirlwinds dissipated after annihilating an enormous amount of godly power. You can destroy 9% of my godly body? Remote ocean body laughed. Ordinary universe knights can't damage 1/1000th of it even if they self-destruct. No wonder you're a universe overlord. Remote ocean body dashed at Pon Knight. Pon Knight had been chasing Luo Feng all along, and they were now only 6 million miles away from each other. Remote ocean body raced towards Pon Knight. The original Earthling body is moving in the opposite direction with remote ocean body moving in a straight line. I'll get closer and closer to you if you continue to pursue the original Earthling body. Blade River Emperor, do you really think you're invincible with that body? Pon Knight roared. I'll let you know now that even a gigantic godly body like this is useless against me. Remote ocean body bumped into Pon Knight. Explode! 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 Remote ocean body roared and blew itself up. What? Pon Knight shouted, completely shocked. Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected this. Supreme beings with powerful godly bodies like that would never self-destruct. A godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles would cost too much to recover, yet remote ocean body let out all its energies at once. The power was unbelievably mighty. An area of 60,000 miles around remote ocean body was dead silent, but everywhere within 600,000 miles was instantly blasted by the godly power. Space fragments flew hundreds of millions of miles into the distance. Bastard, came a furious cry from the center of the explosion. A blue figure stood at the center of the explosion. He was surrounded by black air. The 6 eyes glinted fiercely. Damn you! Damn you! Enough, Pon Knight. 2 powerful figures stood face to face with each other. One of them was Pon Knight, and the other was a werewolf great being, beside whom stood Luo Feng. Luo Feng looked at Pon Knight in front of him. Pon Knight had received the complete deified general inheritance. He was a candidate deified general and a universe overlord. Feng had arrived just as Luo Feng's remote ocean body exploded himself. Luo Feng flew beside Pon Knight, as he didn't want to continue the fight. Universe overlords are too powerful, Luo Feng thought. My remote ocean body can only injure him after self-destruction. Pon Knight and Pon Knight faced each other at a distance. They were both candidate deified generals, and they belonged to the same category of deified general inheritance. Pon Knight glared at the werewolf great being. You want to stop me, Feng? I'm human, Pon Knight said coldly. I'll surely defend a great being of my race. There were black whirlpools in all the 6 of Pon Knight's eyes, and the airflow was tumbling around him. Then let's fight, he said. Pon Knight responded, Feng, you were not my match even before 20% of your godly body was depleted. I suggest that you leave. Otherwise, other great beings of my race will arrive soon. Bastard. Pon Knight clenched his teeth. Damn it. He was exasperated. He was a universe overlord. It was strenuous to complete the deified general inheritance, yet he had done it. And as a universe overlord, he was seldom defeated unless he facing other universe overlords or universe masters. He hadn't risked everything yet. However, he hadn't expected to be attacked by the self-destruction of that godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles. 5,500 miles. If it weren't for his true treasure armor, he would have been annihilated. Even with his true treasure armor, 20% of his godly body was gone. He was defeated by an undying fighter. Blade River Emperor. Pon Knight roared, glaring at Luo Feng. You were willing to blow up your godly body. A godly body as powerful as a universe knight. A godly body at the height of greater than 5,500 miles. You are vicious. Luo Feng remained calm. All too easy, he said. I've underestimated you, Pon Knight said. He stared at Luo Feng. Next time, I'll utilize everything I've got. I'll treat you like a universe overlord. Pon Knight glanced at Pon Knight. Feng, you only rely on your true treasures. With that, Pon Knight turned into a beam of light and teleported himself away. Although they were both universe overlords, Pon Knight came from a mighty race of Northern Territory Alliance. There were lots of races within the Northern Territory Alliance, but they only had about the same amount of resources as the Hong Alliance did. It was fortunate for Pon Knight to have been given 2 true treasures. As for Pon Knight, he came from the human race, a pinnacle race in the universe with valuables to spare. Naturally, they highly valued their own great beings. Pon Knight had 4 true treasures, and they were a perfect combination. With his own mighty power and 4 true treasures, Pon Knight was indeed Pon Knight's better. Good for you, Luo Feng, Pon Knight said. He glanced at Luo Feng with a smile on his face. The space gradually became peaceful, and the space fragments vanished completely. Pon Knight and Luo Feng stood facing one another. You just injured Pon Knight, the universe overlord, said Pon Knight. You were able to injure someone who's able to fully operate the 3rd form of the true treasure armor on his body with his law comprehension. Impressive. Impressive, indeed. I'm just lucky. Luo Feng smiled. Generally, true treasures had different forms. For instance, his Shou wing had 3 forms, and with the user getting stronger, it could be better utilized. When Luo Feng tried to drive Star Tower, he could feel that the lore engravings inside it were complex to the point of being incomprehensible. Thus, he couldn't even operate it at a minimum level, let alone make the best of it. Pon Knight was a universe overlord, and that true treasure armor barely crossed the threshold of true treasures. He was indeed able to operate a true treasure in its 3rd form, which was why he had only lost 20% of his godly body after a 5,500-mile-tall godly body exploded in front of him. Pon Knight shook his head and looked at Luo Feng. It's because of your power. For what it's worth, I admire how you just blew up that enormous godly body. I'm not even in his league, Luo Feng said. I didn't have other option. Yes, Pon Knight said. He indeed overpowers you to a large extent. After all, you're only undying, and your lore comprehension can't even compare with him. He can wield the power of the same true treasure much better than you. I assume you're unable to make the best use of your true treasure wing? Yes. Luo Feng nodded. He had just started the 2nd form of Shou wing. Besides, Pon Knight continued, he underestimated you in the first place and didn't even consider that you might be a contender. In the future, you might not even have the chance to self-destruct and hurt him. Luo Feng nodded. In the future, Pon Knight might keep his distance from remote ocean body. As long as he was more than 60,000 miles away from the center of the explosion, the blast wouldn't be dangerous. And if Luo Feng was too close to Pon Knight, he didn't dare detonate remote ocean body, as he was afraid that his original Earthling body would be injured as well. This time, his original Earthling body had been millions of miles away from the center of the explosion. Naturally, he hadn't been hurt at all. If, however, his original Earthling body had been in close quarters combat with Pon Knight when he had detonated the remote ocean body, the original Earthling body would have been annihilated immediately, and Pon Knight would have only suffered a few injuries. At that point, Pon Knight would definitely have taken all the treasures left by Luo Feng's Earthling original body. He'll be onto you after this, Pon Knight said. He'll definitely turn this around. I'll tell you about him to make sure you won't be bullied by him in the future. Luo Feng listened carefully. Pon Knight has 2 true treasures, Pon Knight said. One is a piece of armor, and the other is a blade. As his true treasure weapon is a blade, he devoted lots of his energies and time to close combat, and he created incredible blade techniques. His fighting power, together with his blade, can destroy lots of treasures in one strike. Luo Feng was stunned. You must have been able to resist his soul technique if you survived that fight, Pon Knight said. As for some distant attacking skills, I'm sure you can handle them as well. The only thing you need to beware of is his close quarters combat techniques. They are his trump card. In close quarters combat, he can fully utilize his true treasure blade. Even if you have true treasure armor, your godly body won't be able to withstand the shock wave. Pon Knight shook his head solemnly. Unless you have a flying palace-type true treasure. Is the combination of his fighting techniques and true treasure blade really that powerful? Luo Feng couldn't help but ask. Can it really destroy a treasure with a single strike? Does that mean my ancient boat galaxy would be at risk? There are different levels of treasures, Pon Knight said. Some top-tier treasures and set treasures are already close to true treasures, and they are difficult to destroy, whereas some ordinary treasure armors or weapons will be fragile. Luo Feng nodded. Ancient Boat Galaxy was a top-tier treasure and was as valuable as true treasures. Besides, it had belonged to an inborn beast god known as Wine Master before. It should be solid. Remember, be mindful of his close quarters combat techniques, Pon Knight said. He nodded. All right, let's go back. Okay. Luo Feng nodded. Luo Feng knew he didn't want to reveal his trump cards. He had only utilized the 2nd move of Star Map when fighting Bark Mirror Emperor. And when he was fighting Pon Knight, he could have hidden in Ancient Boat Galaxy and let Mosha Body perform his talent technique domain to escape. However, if he had done so, he would have revealed two of his deepest secrets: Ancient Boat Galaxy and the Talent Technique Domain. Only a few in the universe, including 9 Remoteness Master and Chaos City Leader, knew about Domain. It was a vital trump card for him, as he could almost certainly escape from any enemies weaker than Universe Masters. Hence, he wouldn't use it unless his life was seriously threatened. As for the remote ocean body, at the height of more than 5,500 miles, he could recover it in no time. After all, he should at least show some real power. In the open-air square of the world of glory, there was hustle and bustle among the heirs. What's the result of the battle? Bark Mirror Emperor is such a sore loser. He was the one who wanted a live broadcast in the first place, but he turned it off after realizing that he was at a disadvantage. It must be Bark Mirror Emperor who lost. That's right. He lost without a doubt. The heirs were upset by Bark Mirror Emperor. He had been exceedingly confident and had wanted all the heirs to watch the fight, presuming he would crush Blade River Emperor. It had indeed excited many heirs. The news spread across the universe, drawing attention from lots of supreme beings. Little did they expect Bark Mirror Emperor to cut off the feed halfway through the fight. Look, it's Blade River Emperor. All the heirs in the square looked towards the portal. A shadow appeared. It was Blade River Emperor. Luo Feng looked at the heirs in the distance. He saw his teacher True Yang Knight and his friends, including Cha Man Emperor. His voice resounded on the square as he said, "Hi, all. I've already finished the battle with Bark Mirror Emperor. Here is a clip of the battle." A blurry light shot out from Luo Feng's wrist guard, and a 3D virtual projection showed up in the sky of the square. The clip began at the point when Bark Mirror Emperor and Blade River Emperor met. The fight was fierce, but Bark Mirror Emperor was completely suppressed. Finally, at the end of the fight, Bark Mirror Emperor blew himself up in order not to be enslaved. It was a Universe Knight level battle, yet both of them were undying. One was a special life form while the other was a timeless and peerless talent of the human race. But, to everyone's surprise, the result was that the human won, and the special life form was left with no choice but to destroy himself. Incredible. He died. Self-destruction. The heirs were astounded. They had already reasoned that Bark Mirror Emperor must have lost after watching the first half of the battle, but they didn't expect Bark Mirror Emperor to be so crushed so badly that he died. The square was filled with a sense of shock. The consensus was that only a Universe Knight could kill Bark Mirror Emperor. The heirs watched Luo Feng as he walked to where the heirs of Hong Alliance gathered. He sat beside his teacher True Yang Knight. Luo Feng glanced around and saw a shadow afar. Pon Knight. Luo Feng frowned. Pon Knight was also watching the video clip. He was visibly terrified to know that Blade River Emperor was making the footage of the battle public. Luo Feng could practically read his thoughts. Is he going to show the footage of him injuring me? Beings like Pon Knight cared about their reputations a lot. Pon Knight immediately connected to the world of glory with his consciousness. All good, all good. Pon Knight was relieved. He only showed the footage of the battle between him and Bark Mirror Emperor. Pon Knight suddenly turned around. While Luo Feng looked at him, they exchanged eye contact. Pon Knight's eyes glinted aggressively. He moved his lips without making a sound, but Luo Feng could tell clearly what he had just said. Blade River, let's see who'll rescue you next time. I'll defeat you again next time. Luo Feng also moved his lips without making a sound. Pon Knight vanished. Luo Feng grinned and looked back at the open-air square. All the heirs were amazed by the footage of the battle, and they all recorded it and transferred it back to the powers they belonged to. Likewise, the video was transferred to Hong Alliance and the human race. If I want to be a supreme being in the universe, I need to be a supreme being within the human race first, thought Luo Feng. Many Universe Knights within the human race are bitter because I made my settlement on the mountainside of Thunder Island. Words are useless, I need to prove myself with my records. Luo Feng smiled. Universe Knights like Nine Blade Knight will get to watch the footage soon. He made the footage public, as he wanted to prove his power with his record. To prove he could not only rival ordinary universe knights, but that he also killed them. This video will end here.